The Dark Carnival. Every year, the Dark Carnival rolled into town under the cover of night, its eerie music echoing through the streets like a ghostly lullaby. It appeared without warning, no flyers, no announcements, just a massive black and red striped tent rising ominously at the edge of town. Locals whispered about it, of course. Those who were brave or foolish enough to enter were never quite the same afterward. Some said the carnival was cursed, others claimed it was run by creatures that fed on fear, but no one truly knew its origin. One autumn evening, when the air was thick with the smell of decaying leaves, Emily found herself inexplicably drawn to the carnival. She had heard the stories growing up about people going in and never coming out, or worse, coming out but changed, haunted. Still, the pull of the haunting carousel music made her curious. The moon was full and the glow from the tent gave off a strange, sickly light. As she approached, the ticket booth was unmanned, but a ticket sat on the corner with her name scribbled across it in crimson ink. Hesitating only for a moment, Emily took the ticket, and the gates creaked open with a soft groan. Inside, everything was twisted. The rides moved in slow, jerky motions, as if time lagged. Behind the lights blinked erratically, casting long, unnatural shadows that seemed to follow her every move. As she wandered deeper into the carnival, she noticed the faces of the carnival workers, painted in grotesque masks, their eyes wide with a strange, unsettling hunger. The first attraction she stumbled upon was a house of mirrors, its entrance gaping like the mouth of a beast. Against her better judgment, Emily stepped inside. The air was thick, suffocating in the mirrors. They didn't reflect her, not really. Each reflection was wrong, twisted. One showed her older, with sunken eyes and hollow cheeks, while another showed her smiling, but her reflection had too many teeth. Panic set in when one of her reflections blinked and she didn't. Racing out of the house of mirrors, she found herself at the foot of a massive Ferris wheel, the carriages swinging like coffins in the wind. But the real horror came when she looked up. There were no operators, no carnival workers in sight, only the passengers. Each one stared down at her, their faces expressionless and pale, their eyes black voids. Then she realized they weren't passengers, they were prisoners. Their hands grasped the iron bars of the carriages, mouthing silent screams, begging her to help. The Ferris wheel groaned, slowly lowering its carriages, as if inviting her to join them. Emily ran, her heart pounding in her chest, desperate to escape the nightmare she had stepped into. But the deeper she went, the more twisted the carnival became. The music, once whimsical, now echoed with a maddening dissonance. She passed games that seemed alive, clowns with grins too wide, and rides that groaned as if in pain. Then she found the tent, the main tent. It loomed before her, its entrance flapping in the wind like the wings of some monstrous bird. She didn't want to go in, but something pulled her in toward it. Something unseen but undeniable. As she stepped through the opening, the music stopped, plunging everything into a heavy silence. The interior was dark, save for a single spotlight that illuminated the center of the ring. In the spotlight stood a figure, tall, slender, and wearing a top hat. His face was obscured by shadow, but his voice was low and smooth when he spoke. "Welcome, Emily. We've been expecting you." Her breath caught in her throat. How did he know her name? Before she could turn to flee, the figure stepped forward, his face finally visible. It was her father, but he had died when she was a child years ago. And yet there he stood, grinning at her, his eyes gleaming with something dark, something unnatural. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice distorted like a broken record. "But now that you're here, there's no leaving." The ground beneath Emily began to shift, the dirt swirling as if something writhed below the surface. From the shadows, figures emerged, people she had known, people who had vanished after visiting the Dark Carnival. Their eyes were vacant, their skin pale, as they reached for her with skeletal hands. Emily screamed and turned to run, but the entrance was gone, swallowed by the dark. The ground beneath Emily began to shift, the dirt swirling as if something writhed just below the surface. From the shadows, figures emerged. People she had known, people who had vanished after visiting the Dark Carnival. Their eyes were vacant, their skin pale. As they reached for her with skeletal hands, Emily screamed and turned to run, but the entrance was gone, swallowed by the dark. The tent stretched on, endless as the figures closed in around her. Her father's grin widened impossibly, his eyes now two black pits. "You belong to the carnival now," he whispered.